The Blood Lion. Chapter 1. Into the Wild. John, an intrepid explorer with a thirst for adventure, found himself in the heart of the African savanna. The vast expanse of grasslands, dotted with acacia trees and teeming with wildlife, was a sight to behold. The sun, a fiery orb in the sky, cast long shadows over the landscape, painting a picture of wild, untamed beauty. Accompanied by a local guide, he ventured deeper into the wild, his heart filled with anticipation. Their journey was a sensory feast. The sight of a herd of elephants grazing peacefully by a watering hole, their massive forms moving with a grace that belied their size. The sound of exotic birds singing in the trees, their melodies weaving a symphony of the wild. The thrill of spotting a distant cheetah, its sleek form a blur of motion as it chased its prey. Each moment was a testament to the raw, unspoiled beauty of nature. But the savanna, for all its beauty, was also a land of danger. It was a world where survival was dictated by the law of the fittest, a fact they were soon to be brutally reminded of. Without warning, a lion emerged from the tall grass. But this was no ordinary lion. It was larger, more menacing, with a look of savage hunger in its eyes that sent a chill down John's spine. Before they could react, the lion attacked. The guide, caught off guard, stood no chance. In the ensuing chaos, John managed to escape, his heart pounding in his chest as he ran for his life. The laughter and camaraderie of the morning were replaced by a chilling silence, broken only by the distant roars of the lion. The reality of his situation sank in. He was being hunted. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the savanna, John found himself alone in the wilderness. The thrill of exploration had turned into a fight for survival. His survival skills, honed over years of adventure, were about to be put to the ultimate test. The hunt was on, and the stakes had never been higher. Chapter 2. The chase begins. As dawn broke, John found himself in a deadly game of hide and seek. The lion was still on his trail, its roars echoing across the savanna, a grim reminder of the danger that lurked nearby. He had to think fast. His survival depended on it. Moving upwind, he hoped to prevent his scent from reaching the lion. He also used his knowledge of the local flora to find plants that could help mask his scent further. It was a small measure, but in the wild, every little advantage counted. John knew that he needed to find water. Following animal tracks, he found a small pool of water. It was a risky move, as watering holes were common gathering spots for predators, but he was careful, always keeping an eye out for the lion. As he navigated the savanna, John also had to find food. He found a tree bearing fruit that the guide had mentioned was edible. Climbing the tree, he filled his backpack with as much fruit as he could carry. As the sun set, John found a safe spot to rest for the night. He knew the lion was still out there, its roars a chilling lullaby as he drifted off to sleep. The chase had begun, and John was determined to stay one step ahead. Chapter 3: Man vs. Wild. The next day brought new challenges. John woke up to the harsh reality of his situation. He was alone in the wild, with a cannibalistic lion on his trail. But he was not about to give up. He was a survivor. He started the day by carefully covering his tracks, using branches to sweep the ground behind him. He knew the lion was smart, but he was determined to make its job as hard as possible. He then set off, moving steadily across the savanna, always alert for any sign of the lion. As he journeyed, John had to contend with the harsh conditions of the savanna. The sun was relentless, its heat sapping his energy. He rationed his water carefully, knowing that he had to make it last. He also had to find more food, a task that was easier said than done in the wild. Despite the challenges, John pressed on. He used his knowledge of the wild to his advantage, identifying edible plants and insects to supplement his diet. He also found a stream, where he refilled his water bottle and took a moment to rest. But he could not afford to let his guard down. The lion was still out there, and it was only a matter of time before it found him. As the sun set, John found a tree to spend the night in, safe from the lion's reach. He was surviving, one day at a time. Chapter: Close Encounters. The following days were a relentless pursuit, a deadly game of cat and mouse. The lion was closing in, its roars growing louder and more frequent. Each encounter was a brush with death, pushing John to his limits. One day, as he was crossing a narrow ravine, the lion appeared without warning. Its eyes locked onto him, its roar echoing through the ravine. Panic surged through John, but he forced himself to keep his wits about him. He scrambled up the ravine, the lion hot on his heels. Rocks tumbled down as the lion clawed at the ravine walls, its roars filling the air. John managed to reach the top just in time, his heart pounding as he watched the lion pace below. Another time, he woke up to the lion's growl, its silhouette looming in the moonlight. Frozen in fear, he watched as the lion circled the tree, its eyes glowing in the dark. It was a terrifying standoff that lasted until dawn, leaving John shaken to his core. Despite the close calls, John refused to give in to despair. Each encounter was a test of his courage and resilience, pushing him to find new ways to evade the lion. He became more adept at masking his scent, at finding food and water, at navigating the treacherous terrain of the savanna. As the sun set on another day, John looked out over the savanna. He was exhausted, his body pushed to its limits. But he was also alive, and as long as he was alive, he had a chance. The lion was relentless, but so was he. He was surviving, against all odds. Chapter 5. Roar of the Wild. The final day dawned, bringing with it a sense of impending confrontation. The lion was closing in, its roars echoing ominously across the savanna. John knew that the endgame was near. It was him or the lion. As he made his way across the savanna, he stumbled upon a rocky outcrop. An idea formed in his mind. It was a dangerous plan, but it was his only chance. He decided to make a stand. He positioned himself on the outcrop, his heart pounding in his chest. He could see the lion approaching, its eyes locked onto him. As it leapt towards him, he sidestepped, causing the lion to crash into the rocks. It was momentarily stunned, giving John just enough time to make his escape. He ran, his legs pumping, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could hear the lion recovering and giving chase, but he didn't look back. He ran until he couldn't hear the lion's roars anymore, until he was sure he had lost it. As the sun set, John found himself on the edge of the savanna. He had done it. He had survived. He looked back at the vast expanse of grasslands, the setting sun casting long shadows over the landscape. He had faced the lion and lived to tell the tale. He was a survivor.